Going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So I had some folks reach out to me and wanted to make sure that I did some sort of update or kept the updates coming on I guess my clean time, coming off of 7:0H. I shared a video probably a week or two ago where I had gone to a detox facility in Florida as a result of using the 7-hydroxy. Now listen, for someone like me, this was no accident. I've been using Kratom and Kratom products on and off really since about 2020, maybe 2019. I don't know exactly, but somewhere in the realm of 5 or 6 years. I came off successfully a few different times, but wasn't really doing any sort of recovery when I came off of it. This time I was actually on 7-hydroxy for a couple of months, maybe 2.5 months, and it ripped me a new asshole. I mean that quite literally. And to a point where I felt like I had no choice but to go get some professional help in detox. Right. So that's what I did. I went to Florida. If you've not seen that video, I will link it down in the description if you'd like to check it out. It's about an hour long, but it details, me talking about what, when the 7-hydroxy addiction started for me, leaving my family. It includes the flight over there. It includes commentary after I get out of the facility and I'm staying in a hotel, my flight back home, reuniting with my family, and then finally a talk about how long off of 7-hydroxy I am, how I'm doing physically, mentally, emotionally, all that stuff, right? So it includes all of that. So it's a very long video, but just in response to that video alone, I've had multiple people, again, reach out to me and say, I'm neck deep in this shit. I'm taking this much. It is insidious. It's killing me. I'm dying. I want to get off so bad, but I'm scared. I don't see a way out. Trust me. A lot of you guys don't see what goes on in the background. You have a channel like this, even though my channel's still relatively small, I have over 1,500 subscribers at this point. That's a lot of people seeing the video. And I know that particular video has over 500 views at this point. So there's people watching it, there's people seeing it worldwide, and there's people that are still stuck on this substance. Okay. At this point, today, as we speak, I am 27 days off of the 7-hydroxy. I did do the detox facility put me on a 6-day really short Subutex taper. So with that would mean I'm 21 days off of the Subutex at this point. Okay. So how am I doing? I'll just lay it out there. So, my physical withdrawals, I would say, are pretty much gone at this point. Yeah, I'll have a couple of every once in a while, like a couple of underlying, like, little kind of discomfort in my chest or whatever, but every day that's getting less and less and less and less and less. At this point, it's not palpable. It's more like an afterthought. It's like, what was that? And then it's gone, right? And the intensity of those sort of withdrawal-y type feelings are much less than they were previously. A couple of nights ago, I actually slept not through the whole night. I'm not still sleeping the whole night. Or I'm still not sleeping the whole night. I'm more so sleeping, a couple hours, then I'm awake for 30 minutes, and then I was able to fall back to sleep for a couple hours, wake up, wake for a couple. For some reason, when you're coming off of something like this, and you've, your opiate receptors are really sensitive to this sort of thing, which mine are. You go through a period of insomnia. I think that's one of the more disturbing and frustrating. I don't want to call it a long-term symptom, but it's longer than the physical withdrawals themselves for me, right? But 2 nights ago, I was able to get probably 5 hours, a good 5 hours of sleep for the night. That may not sound like a ton, but for a grown person, that's decent. It's not bad. And the only thing I did to do that was just take some magnesium. some natural magnesium supplement. Um, Earlier on, 2 weeks ago in this process, that absolutely would not have done shit for me. The magnesium would not have helped at all. I would have been laying there all night. I would have still been in discomfort. I would have still been moving constantly. Um, nothing as intense and as bad as, my first night in detox that I shared in the video. That if you'd like to watch that, my description of my first night in detox without having any Subutex or any 7-hydroxy, it was horrible. If you've seen the movie Ray, where he's coming off of heroin, if you've seen the movie Basketball Diaries back in the day that depicts Leonardo DiCaprio coming off of a serious heroin addiction and withdrawing from that, that was me. That was very similar to me that first night in the facility. With that said, I won't go through all of that again. Um, and it's interesting because you get people who are ride or die for this kratom stuff, you know, and kratom powder, I'm the first to admit, a little bit different than this 7-hydroxy beast. Um, a lot of places are calling this 7-hydroxy situation the fourth opioid crisis. Literally, they're referring to it as the fourth opioid crisis, right? Like you got the pain pills back in the day, and you got the heroin, and you got the fentanyl. Now you've got 7-hydroxy, right? And it is no less than heroin, in my opinion, no less than pain pills. I mean, it's just as insidious, it's just as hard to come off of, right? Um, you know, I mean, I have a person right now that reached out to me on Instagram after seeing my detox from 7-hydroxy video and has just been pouring into me like, bro, I'm desperate. Dude, I'm on this much per day. When you were describing how it feels to try to come off of it, oh my gosh, I can relate to that. It's absolutely horrible. I just want to get off of this so bad, blah, 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 blah. And see, you guys don't really see that. Now, I'm not going to share who the person is. There's some anonymity that I want to respect his privacy. And, not like you would know the person anyway, but this guy may not want me on the channel, talking about his personal information. So I wouldn't do that. But it happens, and it's happening. And it's not the first time that I've had people reach out to me, not only regarding 7-hydroxy, but just kratom in general. Kratom's no baby either. So, by example, Florida just weeks ago banned and has made the 7-hydroxy chemical a controlled, like, schedule substance, right? I don't think that they've done that for kratom itself. Maybe they have. Maybe somebody can correct me on that in the comments. I looked it up before I did the video because I wanted to give correct information. I do know 7-hydroxy for sure is banned in Florida. And there's other places that have banned it as well. So, if there's any of you guys that are on it right now or considering taking it, don't bother. I mean, if you're already on it, obviously that's something different. And I would suggest if you have insurance and you have a job, talking to your people at your HR facility and trying to get some professional help is really, 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 really difficult to come off of on your own by yourself. It just is. It just is. And I'm a pretty tough dude. I mean, you're talking about a guy that back in my early 30s came off of a heavy Percocet addiction to where I was probably taking 150 to some days 200 milligrams of Percocet every day. And that withdrawal was horrific, horrible. But I literally was able to just lock myself in my apartment at that time and come off on my own with no medical intervention whatsoever. So, not trying to toot my own horn, not that this will be anything to brag about anyway, but I'm no pussy when it comes to this sort of stuff. So I'm a pretty tough dude. So if I packed up my shit and left my family for almost 2 weeks to go to another state to detox from 7-hydroxy, that should put you on notice. I know you don't know me, but trust me, it should put you on notice because I'm a pretty tough dude. If it were easy to come off of, and if it were just lickety split, 3-4 days, I'm good. If it were that sort of thing, I would have done it that way, because the last thing I wanted to do was leave my family. I have a 2-year old, that I missed furiously while I was gone, and my wife as well. So it's one of those things where if you haven't used it, don't use it, because it is only a matter of time before that stuff gets yanked off of all of the shelves. They're going to start prosecuting people for selling it online. I'm telling you, it is a foregone conclusion that this stuff is absolutely about to be banned and outlawed. And I always hated to be that guy that got online and was some sort of crusader against, some sort of chemical or something, because for a lot of my life, I've kind of taken the stance of, oh, it's your body, you know, people shouldn't get in trouble for ingesting some sort of substance that makes them feel any sort of way. It's their body, yada yada yada, whatever. Yeah, and it is a person's choice, but there's also people that are getting sucker punched by this shit, meaning they don't see it coming. And yeah, while it's their choice to do that, there are a lot of people that are starting to take this stuff that don't really know what they're getting themselves into. And unfortunately, they don't understand how bad it can be and how detrimental it can be until they're already up to here in it. It's like quicksand. And then the more you move, the more you wiggle, the more you take, the more you try to get out, the deeper you get, and it really is one of those things where by the time people realize, like, oh, this is some evil shit, they're already hooked. They're already hooked. What causes them to get to that realization is they're already hooked. They're already having withdrawals. They already have a huge tolerance for this sort of thing. So, I'm putting people on notice. If you've not started taking something like 7-hydroxy, don't. That is my best advice. And this is coming from a person who has pretty rich history with opiate use. Not proud of that, by the way, but it just is what it is. Life and moving forward, getting better, improving. It's all about owning your past. And that's what I'm trying to do now, including going to meetings, recovery meetings, NA meetings, stuff like that, making sure I'm keeping myself accountable this time around. In fact, less than an hour, I have a virtual Zoom meeting that I want to jump on. But this is something that people need to realize, that it's not going to end well for you. If you have a propensity for abusing or misusing or overusing any sort of opiate, and people can sit there and say all day, oh, kratom's not an opiate. I mean, you'd be surprised. I get such idiotic comments on this. And what they're talking about is, you take kratom and you put it into a lab and you break it down pharmacologically, it doesn't classify as an opiate, right? So people, pick and choose the narratives that they want to fit based on what their use of kratom is, right? And what they want to see it as. But the truth be told, I don't give a shit what it shows up as pharmacologically in a lab. It still binds to the same opiate receptors that morphine, heroin, fentanyl, and pain pills all do. And you notice everything I said right then, all of those are included in the opiate crisis, right? It's pretty simple. So for all the people jumping on, kratom's not an opiate, it's a motherfucking opiate. Shut your stupid selective mouth, because I don't care what it classifies as, it acts like an opiate. And if it acts like an opiate, it can be highly addictive, especially for people who have any sort of history, any sort of past with misusing or abusing opiates. So first off, don't even bother. If you haven't touched it, don't bother, because it's not only not going to do anything but take you down the devil's toilet bowl, but it's also going to be something that you're going to get on it. And then 6 months from now, when you're already hooked and tweaking over the shit and you're in serious withdrawal when you're not taking it, they're going to come pull it off the shelves. It's only a matter of time. state by state by state is noticing this shit. And these detox facilities are, and, these hospitals and emergency rooms and all these places are calling this shit in. They're being like, hey, this 7-hydroxy stuff that is found, 20 different places within 5 blocks from here, and the stuff that you can go on the internet and order it and get it delivered right to your mailbox, that stuff, that's no bueno, man. We've had 10 patients within the past 2 months show up in our facility or show up in the hospital, struggling trying to get off of this because it's a very, very serious opioid sort of concern, right? And so that's what's happening. And the government's finally starting to take notice. They're finally starting to realize that this is a major loophole. And you know what? Like I said, in the past, I've always been like, hey, it's your body, your choice. Do what you want to do if you want to put some sort of substance in your body. But I'm not saying I don't still feel that way. But on the flip side of that same coin, so many of the people that get into this are blindsided by it and sucker punched by it and don't really realize what they're getting into, right? And what about those people? What about these people out here that have never had an addiction to opioids, and don't really have some sort of excuse, and somebody refers them to it. Oh, this will help with your pain. Oh, you have a bad back? You have bad, chronic back pain? Here, try this stuff, man. This will help you out. Oh, cool. Take it. Oh, shit, it actually makes me feel good, too. Damn, this is like the most magical substance I've ever ingested in my body in my life. Praise the Lord. I've found the golden goose. And then 4 months later, they can't get some one night, and then they're tweaking like fucking Leo DiCaprio on Basketball Diaries or Jamie Foxx on Ray. This shit's happening. The shit's happening. And, after my experience with it, it's, I just kind of made it my mission. Like, I'm trying to help people get off this shit. I'm trying to let people know that it is doable. There's a lot of people out there right now, they're just stuck on it and they feel so hopeless, so helpless. This person I'm talking to right now, the one that reached out to me on Instagram, this dude, I can hear and feel the hopelessness when he messages me and he's like, I just don't know how I'm going to get up, and he's in a worse spot than what I was because he doesn't have insurance. So the first thing I said to him, obviously, is go get some professional help. Go to a detox facility. He doesn't have insurance. And these detox facilities can be very, 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 very expensive if you don't have insurance. So, I encouraged him, hey, you got a job, get some private insurance. Call, see if you can get some sort of private insurance. Pay into it for a couple of months. Just maintain on the 7-hydroxy until that insurance kicks in, and then boom, off to detox you go, bro. And I don't know if he's going to do that. Again, I don't want to share too much of his story, but there are people out there that are desperately, desperately trying to get off of this stuff. So I'm trying to help people the best I can. And one more thing, and I'm going to end with this. I mentioned, what I'm doing differently this time after having come off of something like this is I'm in recovery this time. I'm attending meetings, stuff like that. And I had someone jump on one of my other videos and say, hey, NA and AA and all that stuff, that's not the only program. There's something called Smart Recovery that's been popular since the 90s that a lot of people are using. It's not necessarily spiritual based, but more science based on cognitive behavioral therapy. And instead of them identifying you as an addict, you're a person who has addictive behaviors. You have the power within you, especially with the support of other people who are addicted and other peers, and with meetings to help with accountability and stuff like that. You have the power within you through cognitive behavioral therapy to change those addictive behaviors. And yeah, I believe that. I support that. I'm not saying that NA or AA or any of these other things are the only way to get clean and remain clean. My whole thing with that is whatever works. Whatever works, even if you don't do NA or AA and you can just start diving back into your spiritual life and your church life or whatever it is, whatever works for you, or just seeing a therapist and working through some of your past shit, some of your past trauma. I mean, one of the reasons that a lot of us abuse stuff like this is because of childhood trauma. Dude, I've learned this in recovery. And I learned so many things. And when they started talking about that, it really resonated with me because I've got some childhood trauma. I've got some things that, happened. I mean, I was raised in a good family and had a good life. And so, but I do have a handful of things that happened with me where I'm like, damn, damn, yeah. I would classify that as childhood trauma for sure. And these are things that I've never talked about. And here I am, a man in my 40s now. I've never talked about these things because they're, you know, humiliating. They're embarrassing, things to talk about. And but a lot of us people who have become heavy users of stuff like this are trying to cover up those things that happen to us and trying to numb down our emotions, so that we don't have to deal with these, you know, traumatic things that happened to us when we were younger. That's what the situation that a lot of us are in. So if cognitive behavioral therapy or meeting with a good therapist can help with that sort of thing once you come off of um, something like kratom or 7-hydroxy or whatever it is, then more power to you. That's great if that can work for you. But I think it's a matter of, a lot of us, because we were hurt people, we hurt people. That's a saying in recovery is, what do hurt people do? They hurt people, right? And so a lot of us have done things in our addictive use that we're not proud of, that have hurt other people and have done other people wrong. And I think it's important to make amends to those people and stuff like that, which is a big part of recovery. But it doesn't mean you have to go through AA or NA to do it. Smart recovery that I was talking about specifically is more based on cognitive behavioral therapy and recognizing those addictive behaviors and then creating new behavioral patterns, right? And, if that works for you, great. They don't necessarily have an amends program where you go in and you make a list and an inventory of everyone that you've hurt during your active use and stuff like that, and then you go apologize to that. They don't have that, but I read up on it, and a lot of people that are in the Smart Recovery program do their own version of making amends to people. I mean, how hard can that be? Well, I mean, it is hard because you have to swallow your pride and show some humility. But you know, I have a list of people that I would like to reach out to and say, hey, just so you know, back then, when I did X, Y, Z, and blah blah blah, I'm really, really sorry. And it's not an excuse, but I'm in recovery now, and I'm a recovering, drug addicted person. I was addicted to drugs at the time that happened, and I'm sorry that I did that to you. Truly, I hope that you can forgive me. And part of my recovery is making this amends to you, and I hope that you can forgive me for it. And if they don't, at least I've done my job. You know what I mean? For a lot of us, that will be with family, with friends, possibly former employers, coworkers, whoever it might be. I mean, people who are addicted do some messed up things. Is it because we're bad people? No, it's not because we're bad people. And the reason that you feel shame and guilt from having done those things is because you're not a dark person. Even though you did some things that were dark to get your immediate need of that drug and that substance met, doesn't mean you're a dark person. Because let me explain something to you. If you were a dark person, you wouldn't give a shit. You wouldn't have any shame and guilt. You would be like, I hurt that person. Oh well, it ain't me. I ain't really worried about it. But you don't feel that way. You feel shame and guilt because guess what? You are the light. You're not the dark. Even though you did things that were dark because that substance and that drug made you. Now listen, I'm not taking away your accountability. You're still a person. You're still responsible for your actions. You still could have went and gotten help and stopped doing those things despite the fact that it's hard. But the fact that you feel shame and guilt in the first place shows you're not a bad person. You're not a bad person. That's why you feel guilty for doing that stuff, because you're actually a good person who did some bad things and realized that those bad things were bad things. Therefore, you feel shame and guilt. Marinate on that for a second. But it's important to make amends for those things, because in that, letting go of those secrets and purging yourself of these negative feelings of shame and guilt that you have by apologizing to the people that you've wronged helps you feel lighter, helps your countenance feel lighter, and somewhat makes you, causes you to feel forgiven, right? But anyway, kind of just rambling at this point. Want to let you guys know my physical withdrawals are pretty much over with. The biggest thing is a little bit of insomnia still going on that's kind of lingering for me. Nothing horrible. I'm not laying in there like physically uncomfortable, moving around. It's just like my brain just won't shut off. That sort of thing, which is, it's annoying, but it's getting better day by day. And I'd say the next thing, up the scale, that I'm still experiencing is just kind of low mood a little bit during the day, a little bit of low energy, when I'm hanging around the house with my family. And, I've got a 2-year-old that's just a big bundle of energy. So it's kind of like, I know the right thing to do is to get up and interact with them and play with them and take him and do this and take him and do that. And there are times where I find myself just taking the easy route and just kind of sitting on the couch and letting him watch TV and stuff. And I try not to do that, especially because I'm a person who, my educational background is in child development. Yeah, that's what my 4-year degree is in child development, birth through kindergarten. So I know that's not the best thing, but it's just one of those things where my energy's pretty low still, my mood's still kind of low during the day, and I know that that's something that's going to take a while, And I know this sounds scary to hear, but they can say they say that it can take up to a year, up to even 18 months, for a person's brain to completely revert back to homeostasis and recover back to baseline after years of heavy opioid type use, right? That's a long time. That's a long time. So, I'm less than 30 days right now. I'm approaching 30 days, but I'm just trying to remind myself of that. Remember that it took me a while to get myself into this shit with my using, so it's going to take me a little while to get myself out. It's not oh, I quit on Tuesday and then I snap my fingers and then Wednesday I'm like, okay, I'm starting to be good. Like, if that's your experience, you weren't addicted and you weren't taking enough to be addicted. For anybody who is addicted to stuff like this, including kratom, um, it's a slow burn, man. It's a slow burn when you come off of it, and it's a slow process of your brain beginning to heal itself, right? And your body too. But I'm noticing a lot of improvements. My energy is not as low as it was 2, 3 weeks ago. Obviously, I'm not having like the hot and cold flashes sort of thing. My bowels are starting to kind of work themselves out and be somewhat normal again. Um, I'm not having the constant sneezing fits and runny nose and the really, really palpable sort of depression. Like, I'm not having that sort of thing. It's more like just kind of listlessness. Like, I don't have a lot of energy to be up running around the house with my 2-year-old, but I feel okay considering, and I know it'll continue to get better. I am continuing to do the hard things, like I'm trying to eat healthy, trying to make sure to drink water every day. I'm trying to make sure to exercise. I am getting stronger. I'm doing the same workouts now that I was doing a couple of weeks ago. Now they're getting a lot easier, and I don't feel like I have, 10-pound weights on both of my hands and my ankles when I'm doing the workouts now. So stuff does begin to improve pretty quickly, but there's certain, post-acute withdrawal things that you need to be aware of with something like coming off of a long-term 7-hydroxy or kratom addiction, right? That's all I got. I'm gonna go spend time with my family. Got to hit up a meeting here really soon. If you need any help at all, reach out to me. I can't promise how much time I will have to interact with you, but I do interact with the people on my channel because I want to see people get better. I want to see people heal from this stuff, man. I want to see people get off of it. And just know that you're going to have to prepare yourself mentally and physically that this shit's going to be hard for a little bit. It's not going to be easy. As addicts, we are people who are all about that instant gratification, that immediate gratification. Oh, well, I feel this way. I'm feeling a little anxious. I'm feeling a little bored. Well, let me pop this little tablet. 10 minutes later, I'm like, woohoo! The world is great. Everything's great. This chair is great. That tree's great. Look at that grass. Oh, I love grass so much. That's not normal. It's not normal to be that way. It's not normal to feel that way. Okay? We're supposed to be more like this. So when it comes to coming off of something like this, and then you not only don't have that substance anymore, but then you're actually feeling less and lower and less energy than what you would naturally because you're going through these withdrawals, then it's really hard as people who are all about instant gratification to then sit in that, to sit in that depression, to sit in that low mood, to sit in the just the withdrawal type physical symptoms. It's really hard to sit in that and be patient, as a person who is addicted to substances that are all about an instant hit, an instant gratification, an instant dopamine punch, right? And just, you got to prepare yourself for that. Pray for strength, pray to God, give me that long suffering, give me that patience, give me that sense within of hope, of knowing that this is temporary. It's temporary. It's going to get better day by day by day by day by day by day. You've been using for 5 years, but you can't give yourself 6 months, a year to improve, to get better, to get back to what you were before. It takes time. You don't use something for 5 years and then you stop it, and a week later people expect to be better. Well, damn, I quit last week. I just can't do this. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You just gotta, that's part of that cognitive behavioral, addictive behavior thinking that you have. You want it done and you want it better and you want it better now. It doesn't work that way. It does not work that way. You have to exercise some patience. And I've had to develop some patience in this, and I trust God. I trust God, and I knew it was going to be hard, and it has been. It has been. But I'm taking these little improvements that I see every day, and I'm clinging to those, and I'm edifying those to make them even bigger than what they actually are. I'm like, you know what? My sleep's turning around. It's getting better. It's getting better. And in actuality, I probably only slept like 4.5 hours, but that's better than laying there all night staring at the ceiling, or better than laying there being dope sick and not being able to sit still. So you just have to look at it that way. You have to be patient, be ready, be strong. If you would, please do subscribe to the channel. If you enjoy this sort of content, somebody just being real with you, please do that. And I will see you guys on the next one. Thanks so much for watching.